the journey, it's part of the yacht race, a two-handed race from Melbourne to Osaka in Japan. And then I went from Japan across to America, down to Hawaii, and then back to Australia. In 2003, it was possible to rely on fishing for food every day. And in actual fact, in 2013, this race has rarely been done twice. In 2013, because of stringent safety requirements, they required everybody to go along for education nights prior to the race. They wanted to know that everybody was actually going to make it. One of the nights that they had was about food, so there was probably 20 other competitors in the room. And I went around the room and everybody had to say what they were going to do for food. It's 35 days at sea straight, and so they just want to know everybody had covered all possibilities. And when it got to me, I just said, well, I'm kind of going to do what I did last time. I'm just going to take rice and I'm going to fish. And the room kind of laughed, and I was quite serious. I mean, that's what I'd intended doing, having done that in 2003. All I can say about this time is thank heavens that we'd taken some dry food on board, because in actual fact, if we had tried to rely on that, we'd have all starved to death. The difference between 2003 and 2013, in 2003, every time you felt like fish, you just threw the line out and within half an hour, you'd have fish on a daily basis. And we met other yachts in different islands we called into that were also doing the same thing. 10 years later to the day, on exactly the same course, we only caught 2 fish over 5,500 miles. And it wasn't so much what I caught as what I didn't catch that even made me aware of how the ocean had changed. We had 3,000 miles and the only way I could describe it was virtually as a dead ocean or a dead zone in the ocean. There was no birds or fish or whales or dolphins. It was totally lifeless. Whereas 10 years ago, it was full of life. You could see birds feeding and whales and dolphins that swim around the boat, and they're just all gone. And it's frightening. And it's not like they've gone somewhere else, because there kind of is nowhere else. We then sailed from Japan over to America and witnessed the same thing there, right across the North Pacific, 7,000 miles, with huge patches of it, just no wildlife at all. Midway Island, halfway across between Japan and America, called Midway for a reason. The Americans have turned it into a nature reserve, and you can't go there without a permit. Yachts aren't allowed in there, nobody's allowed in there. The Navy, all the military, it's all been removed off the island and it's been totally given back over to wildlife and being turned into a massive marine park around the edges of it. You can witness firsthand that it's making a huge difference, because about 500 miles out from the island, the birds and the sea life started to come back. And what it's done more than anything is convinced me of the value of having marine parks and conservation. I'm not saying that people can't fish, but what I am saying is at least leave some areas available for breeding and for natural habitat, and fish out in the areas outside of them. But here in Australia, the New South Wales coast, there's only 7% of the coastline has been turned over to conservation. And in that 7%, is considered as a no-take zone, meaning nothing can be taken. There can be no amateur fishing or lobsters or any marine life can't be taken out of the 4% no-take zones. The government here has overturned those 4% and declared an amnesty on people fishing in the no-take zones, simply because there's a political party over here called the Shooters and Fishers, and the current government is worried about losing their votes and their support. So they're turning a blind eye to people fishing in the national park, and we've only got 4% of the area. It's a tiny area, and we can't even protect that, and that's kind of just highlighting the madness of the whole thing. Over the horizon, it's out of sight, out of mind. Every country in the world, 200 miles off their coastline, the ocean becomes essentially the Wild West. It's a free-for-all. There's trawlers out there that are massive ships just trawling up and down every day, just taking whatever they want, with no thought to conservation, no sustainability, and I can't see that continuing. I've been in a position where I really believe this, that I've managed to see into the future by seeing the dead zones in the ocean, and the future is very, very grim unless people start to change their habits. When you consider how little's being done to protect the ocean on a global scale, and the ocean is taking up the majority of the planet, when we can't even get it sorted out on land, and there's no interest whatsoever in sorting it out in the ocean over the horizon, I'm just not quite sure where the future's going. The other thing that I witnessed was massive, massive amounts of rubbish floating around in the water. I've had people saying things like, why don't they just pick it up? But the reality is a lot of it is anywhere up to the size of a double-decker bus, which, to be fair, has probably come from a tsunami in Japan. But it doesn't really matter where it's coming from, it's still there. There's no part of the Pacific Ocean anymore where you can't put a net in the water and pull plastic out of the water. But people think of plastic like a plastic bag or a bottle or like a big chunk. But unfortunately the ocean gets the plastic that goes down the drains and all the rest of it and grinds it up into tiny, tiny little particles. And those little particles mimic plankton, and then the fish are eating the ground up plastic. They've had instances where they've had whales over here on the beach in New Zealand wash up, and they've done autopsies on them and found that they're just full of plastic. They've been eating the plastic, thinking they're eating plankton. The rubbish that I've seen not only is on the surface, but it floats all the way down through the layers of the water down below the boat. As far as you can see down at the depths, you can see the rubbish floating at different heights and different levels. Just not sure at the moment what to even say about that. I mean, it's not possible to pick it up, it isn't possible to clean it up, and nobody has any motivation or any interest in doing that anyway. So I'm not quite sure where the future for all of that is going to go. I think that's about all I've got to say on all of it there at the moment.
I think that was really awesome. I mean, I don't know about everyone else, but actually just hearing someone's first-hand experience of seeing or not seeing the effects of our consumption on the oceans is pretty empowering, and I'm really, really grateful for you hanging on the end of a telephone and not being able to see anything except probably the wall behind me. I don't know if there's... Do you want to hang on for the next talk and be around for the question and answer? Is that okay, or...?
Yeah,
you're all right? Okay. Well, thank you very much. And
my career over the last 20 years is on debris in the oceans, kind of from a scientific perspective, counting it, how much is there, what harm does it do, what quantities are there, what size is it, what colour is it, what shape is it, where does it come from, because it's that kind of information that is required by government agencies and by some of the ultimate producers of that waste to actually seek to achieve change. So it's counting just the sort of stuff that Ivan's been talking about, and in terms of the amount of litter, and also the kinds of problems that it might cause.